San Antonio, Texas. On a scorching July morning, news quickly spread through local networks and social media. Edward Ron Acosta, 78 years old, founder of the well-known Las Palapas restaurant chain that spanned over 4 decades, had been murdered in the garage of his upscale Stone Oak mansion. In the eyes of the community, Ron Acosta symbolized success built on compassion. From a small family restaurant, he had turned Las Palapas into a thriving Tex-Mex brand
business
known
owner to
across
say,
South Texas,
not only going to your
creating
logo, your
hundreds of
story
stable jobs
in
and
my
serving
menu.
millions of
Have
customers.
you gotten the Las Palapas
Beyond business,
100 Club?
he was celebrated for his charity work, funding scholarships for disadvantaged youth, supporting free meal programs, donating to homeless housing projects, and countless other acts of generosity. His goodwill was recognized and respected throughout the city. According to San Antonio Police Department reports, the suspect was David Ruiz, 39, Ron's own nephew. Ruiz had a documented history of mental health challenges, including paranoid thoughts, chronic insomnia, and erratic behavior that had alarmed his family. Struggling with unemployment and an unstable living situation in California, Ruiz was invited to Texas by Ron's son. True to his generous nature, Ron Acosta opened the doors of his Stone Oak home to his nephew, hoping to give him a chance to recover and start over. On the morning of July 1, according to police, an argument broke out between Ron and Ruiz in the garage. The specific details of the argument have not been publicly released, but what is confirmed is that Ruiz pulled a knife and stabbed Ron multiple times, killing him on the spot. A house staff member found the victim and immediately dialed 911, but paramedics were unable to save him. Ruiz fled the scene in an SUV and drove more than 100 miles west along Interstate 10. Police quickly issued an emergency alert and coordinated with highway patrol and traffic cameras. Nearly 5 hours later, Ruiz was apprehended at a rest area in Kimball County without resistance. He was then transferred to Bexar County for detention under suicide watch, given clear signs of mental instability. Ruiz has been charged with first-degree murder, a crime that could carry a life sentence if he is deemed competent to stand trial. For now, forensic psychiatrists have been tasked with evaluating his mental state to determine his legal responsibility. The death of Edward Acosta leaves a deep void in the community. Employees, partners, and countless people he had helped over the years expressed their condolences. Here was a founder who gave hundreds of people jobs, helped students gain scholarships, and supported families moving into new homes thanks to community housing programs. Now gone, murdered in the very house that once symbolized family and hope. It was a heartbreak no one could have imagined. That the very nephew Ron had opened his doors to, hoping to save him, would be the one to take his life. In the aftermath of this shocking crime, police records and family accounts revealed a sad picture of David Ruiz's mental decline. Born in 1985, Ruiz had once lived a fairly normal life before developing severe mental health symptoms in recent years. He began experiencing extreme paranoia, chronic insomnia, sudden bursts of anger, and social withdrawal. Family members confirmed that Ruiz had a prior mental health diagnosis, but had failed to stick with consistent treatment. During his time in California, he was unemployed, with unstable housing and severe financial problems, which only deepened his crisis. He had disconnected from relatives for long stretches, skipped follow-up care, and reportedly believed someone was trying to harm him, a delusion that mental health professionals said is common in paranoid disorders. In an effort to help, Ron Acosta's son invited Ruiz to move to Texas, believing that a stable home and family environment might help. Ron, who had always been willing to help his relatives in need, agreed to welcome Ruiz into his Stone Oak mansion, giving him a place to stay and a chance to rebuild. Unfortunately, according to the investigation, Ruiz did not adjust as hoped. In late June 2025, he showed increasing agitation, trouble sleeping, and a fragile emotional state. Household members told police that Ruiz often stayed alone, spoke little, and sometimes made confused remarks about being watched or being deceived. Those warning signs, sadly, were not enough to convince the family to separate Ruiz from Ron Acosta for safety. On the morning of July 1, some sort of dispute escalated. The exact subject of the argument has not been released, but it ended with Ruiz stabbing Ron multiple times in the garage, an area where Ron typically spent time checking on his car or organizing belongings. A staff member discovered Ron lying on the garage floor and dialed 911. Paramedics arrived quickly but could only confirm his death. Ruiz fled west on Interstate 10. Police issued a statewide emergency alert, coordinating highway checkpoints and license plate tracking. About 5 hours later, Ruiz pulled over at a rest area in Kimball County where officers surrounded him. He surrendered without a fight. He was then transported to Bexar County under suicide watch, as medical staff noted high risk of self-harm. Ruiz was officially charged with first-degree murder. Under Texas law, even with a mental health history, he must undergo extensive psychiatric evaluation to determine whether he understood his actions and their consequences at the time of the killing. If found legally competent, Ruiz could face life in prison. If found incompetent, he could be sent to a secure psychiatric hospital for long-term treatment. That decision will rely on expert reports expected in the coming weeks. For San Antonio, this loss went beyond one family. Ron Acosta had spent 40 years providing jobs, creating an affordable dining brand, and giving back to those who needed a hand up. Whether it was scholarships, housing programs, or free meals, he made a difference without ever seeking recognition. That is why his murder struck the city so deeply. A man who dedicated his life to uplifting others was killed by the very person he tried to save.
In the days after Ron Acosta's death, the San Antonio community poured out tributes. Social media was flooded with messages of grief, and former employees and charities he had supported organized memorials in his honor. Many called him the heart of Las Palapas, a leader who never hesitated to help, listen, and show compassion. Hundreds of current and former employees described Ron as a boss who took time to listen, sometimes giving advance paychecks or emergency loans if a worker's family had a crisis. Local charities noted how he quietly but steadily gave money, never seeking publicity, to fund school scholarships, meals for the homeless, and community housing initiatives. His funeral was held with great respect and emotion, drawing relatives, business partners, former employees, volunteers, and local residents. There, many spoke of why Ron was so beloved: his generous spirit, his hands-on style of leadership, and his belief that business should serve people, not just profit. Meanwhile, David Ruiz's legal process continues. His defense attorney confirmed Ruiz had a history of mental illness and was not receiving consistent treatment. The prosecution, however, argued that the act of stabbing Ron multiple times, then fleeing the scene, showed enough awareness and intention to uphold a first-degree murder charge. Under Texas law, if Ruiz is found competent, he faces a potential life sentence. If he is found incompetent, he could instead be confined to a secure psychiatric hospital for indefinite treatment. A final ruling depends on psychiatric evaluations that are still in progress. Public opinion in San Antonio remains divided. Some are outraged, seeing Ruiz as a traitor to his uncle's trust. Others feel sorry for a man clearly suffering, whose condition went untreated for too long, leading to a preventable tragedy. But nearly everyone agrees the loss is immense and leaves a hole that cannot easily be filled. Residents of Stone Oak in particular expressed deep sorrow for the Acosta family. That mansion had once represented safety, family, and generosity. Now it is forever linked to a violent crime, a scar that will not fade quickly. Local journalists noted the painful lesson this case teaches, that even limitless compassion must be balanced with clear safety boundaries and proper mental health support. A kind heart alone is not always enough to stop a tragedy. As of now,
David Ruiz remains in custody in Bexar County, awaiting trial, closely monitored for suicide risk. The community and the entire region are watching closely for the final psychiatric findings and the eventual court decision. What do you think about this tragedy? A man who spent his entire life doing good, only to lose it because of his generosity. Is that too high a price to pay for helping family? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next true crime stories, told with honesty, clarity, and depth.